Welcome back, KKC Consulting, to another episode with me, Amar Khan, your host for today. And luckily, with me, I have the founder of FR Consulting, Matthew. Now, Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me, Amar.
No worries at all. Now, really quickly, let's just get started. Matthew, do you mind providing a little synopsis about yourself?
For sure, yeah. So I'm currently a 23-year-old living in Vancouver, BC. I grew up in Singapore and moved around a little bit when I was younger, but spent the majority of the years up until 16 years old there. Left for boarding school in Canada and then went back to Singapore for my military service. Then came to university and was pretty dead set on landing a job in high finance at that point and spent the majority of my time at university doing so. And so I came to the end of that, having done what I set out to do. And I think realized that all that was always to do entrepreneurship. But I think
Right.
with the lessons learned from that journey, from those experiences, thought that it would be right to do right now. And so left university to start, what is now FR Consulting. And I've been running it for 13 months and it's been an absolute blast.
That's amazing. It's wonderful. Now, you said so many things I want to touch base on, but to be honest with you, I wanted to start with your early career. If you don't mind, I'll just pass on the mic to you now.
For sure, for sure. I think like coming into university and sort of thinking about what I wanted to do, to the extent that that can be called a career, the 4 years. But
Yeah.
but um, I'd always been interested and I had always been a numbers person and had read quite a number of books about economics and the stock market for the year leading up to university. In the military
I
service when I
see.
had more free time, that was a little easier to do and fell kind of in love with just all the information in finance and the different markets and how that all interacted. And so then I realized that it was high paying too. And and then I was like, oh shit, I should probably do this. And so came into university with a pretty defined kind of interest in that, but with very little knowledge of, the way to get in
Right.
or what recruitment was like or how to go about navigating university. And so I think I continued to deepen my understanding and interest in finance throughout that first year, but failed miserably on the recruitment front.
I
And
see.
I think it was seeing the students at my school, UBC, who had been able to accomplish breaking in, gave me kind of that, okay, so it's possible. Um,
Right.
and I think knowing that it was possible and knowing that I hadn't really done anything else in my life up to that point, I thought that like, okay, this is my chance. And so going through that first year of not like figuring out how little I knew. Like I missed club recruiting. Like I didn't even apply to any clubs the first time that I got into school. I didn't even know they existed or that you had to apply them. Like just like sign up online, just like go to it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't do that. I like all I did was apply to jobs essentially. And I thought it was just like, oh, like let me just spam this. Eventually the one's gonna work out. My only work experience up to that point had, been in a Japanese restaurant in Singapore. And so that was all I was used to. But I think like it was maybe athletic experiences that had given me the diligence to keep going, although like everything was a no. My grades were good in first year, but came to the end of it and it was like, dude, like I just spent like 8 months like trying to get a job and I couldn't get
Right.
one. But landed one on April 30th of my first year. So literally like 2 days before the internship started.
Oh,
And I had
wow.
done that, yeah, and I got on it through a friend of mine who I had known since the very start of school. And so that was kind of like, oh, like that's my network at play, right? Like, oh, you
Yeah.
got internship. So that plus the fact that okay, like it had taken me that long to get a job, but I got a job and it was a decent job. It was like accounting finance at a corporation. Now, many people could probably gotten that easier, but I think for me, just seeing that one result, okay, that's my one piece of positive feedback. Um, I think gave me the motivation to continue recruiting into that summer and like, okay, actually, I can really do this. Um,
Right.
And so I think from then on, kind of like just went all in on call it finance recruitment. And I think that's what kind of formed the rest of my experiences or influenced very heavily all the experiences I had throughout university since.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, failure is what makes success so sweet, right?
Yeah.
It's that understanding. We also talked about Alex Hormozy before the podcast actually started. Massive, massive influence on me and you, which we'll dive into later on. But
Sure.
for now, tell me more about your failures. Tell me more about how that kept you going. 8 months is a long time of nothing, 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 and then bam, you finally got it. So how is that?
I think like it getting it was incredibly gratifying, but I think it was also very scary. So I think it
I
showed
see.
that okay, like that to some extent this is a number game. This is a numbers game, and that like expected value works, right? Okay, there's like a 2% chance of me getting in. If I apply to it as many as possible, I'm gonna get something, right? So with that at play, I knew okay, like I can do this, but at the same time, it was like, dude, I know people who got this so much easier. I
Right,
know people who already have better ones. It's like, what are they doing that I'm not? What do they know that I don't? And I think seeing that and then kind of going further into finance recruitment is like, oh shit, it's that deep. Um,
right.
I think was exciting, but it definitely told like, dude, like a year of rejection is like you said, it's not fun. But I think the 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 worst time was like April 30th. Like because I was crying to my parents, I think the day before that about not landing any jobs. So that was really kind of my breaking point. And there's this other kind of like entrepreneur, like thought leader, like Dan Koh, if you've heard of him. Um,
I
and
have, I
yeah,
think.
I love him, but he always talks about how like whenever you're doing something, it's always like the point at which you feel the most pain. It's like you're the closest to the finish
Yeah,
line.
yeah, yeah.
And coming into university, talking about the athletic stuff, I think like I had kind of gone through different cycles of like getting fit and not, and getting fit and not. And so I knew that like, okay, there is improvement. Like I can get better. Like for example, one like my underdeveloped body parts, right? Ones that I thought I could never grow, I actually did grow. And so it's like, oh shit, it just takes more time. It just takes more
Yeah,
effort.
yeah.
So I think it was reaffirming that like, okay, there is merit in continuing to fail, but it was scary in knowing how much failure lay ahead.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true. I mean, you can apply that to everything. Like for me personally, I remember I was at the gym. My legs
Hmm.
were a lot stronger than my upper body. I used to be able to do like 60 on each hand for Bulgarian split squats, right? Very random stat, but I was super
Hmm.
proud of it. But because I was so proud of legs, I never trained my upper body or whatnot. And I was like, ah, shit's not for me. I'll just have big thighs, right? But when I was able to train my upper body, I was like, oh, you know what? Shit. It takes a little bit longer, but I look so much better. I feel so much better, right? It's the idea that doesn't matter how long it takes, as long as you're putting in the little steps, right? And I kind of have a feeling that we've read some of the same books as well. I'm not sure if you read Atomic Habits, but they
Of course.
preach the exact same thing, right? Putting a system in place, consistency. At the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. Like be the runner. Don't just
Right,
try to run, right? Be a
right,
runner. So yeah, no, that's sick.
right. And now, kind of moving on to the professional experience,
Hmm.
I did have a few questions for you, but I wanted to pass off the mic to you. Talk about what you feel is most resonating or is going to be most resonating with the audience.
Yeah. I mean, do you mean in terms of like a position that
Internships, yeah. The
okay.
internships, the whole process after the April 30th. What happened since then, kind of.
Yeah. So I think moving forward from April 30th, like I was kind of in the game and started taking all that finance recruitment very seriously after that. And that was really when my days became structured around the recruitment process and improving at certain recruitment items, whether that be networking, whether that be your technical knowledge or your understanding of the markets, whether that be the behavioral polish or how compelling my answers were. But it was like it was everything. I was reading all the forums online. I was reading all the news articles. I listened to podcasts, right? Still reading a lot of the self-help books as well. And so during that summer, kind of like upped what I was doing, but didn't get many results from it towards the end. Now, that's kind of like out external results. Internally, I mean, I certainly saw myself growing like significantly. I think I started a blog during that first year summer,
I see.
and um, basically, I think I wrote like 2 or 3 articles, and I just listened to a bunch of podcasts like every single morning about the markets, and so just wanted to write about it. And like when I saw my writing, when I looked back at kind of what it was, and then what it was like 2 years before that in school or in high school, like I was actually really proud of myself. So I was like, oh shit, this stuff is
Yeah,
um and I think the when I realized towards the end of that summer that one of my friends who I had been um studying and revising, recruitment items with quite, intensely, we'd meet on a weekly basis. He got an internship for his second year summer before I did. And it was at a really good firm too. And I thought I was doing more than him.
I
So
see.
at that point I was like, shit, like dude, again, like what the is wrong, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyways, I network a lot that summer and I get my first interview with, a firm that was on par with his, um, if not better, for like an investment bank in Canada. And this would be rare for a second year to get. And I say all this to show you how excited I was to get it,
Right, right.
how hyped up I
The
was.
whole build up, right?
Exactly. And I'm like, dude, I've been doing more than what I think other people would do. Like, I got
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Anyways, it's funny with the amount of pressure I put on myself or the amount of importance I placed in that interview. Like, I turned up to it with no tie and in black Air Force Ones. Like, I don't know, it just didn't register to me that like, okay,
Yeah,
I thought the tie was excusable. I didn't even know
yeah.
the Air Force Ones would be a problem.
Oh, really?
Dude, I did.
I'll be honest with you. I went to my first case competition. I was wearing, like, my dad was dropping me to the bus station,
Yeah.
and he saw my shoes. He was like, "What the hell are you wearing?" Right? Like, I was wearing beaten up Air Force Ones. Like, I have a full three-piece suit, and then just beaten up Air Forces at the bottom.
No, no.
But yeah,
Um,
sorry to cut you off.
no, you're good. So I mean like that interview is really intense. It's 90 minutes long. It's 3 back-to-back interviews and it's two
Wow.
people per interview, 2 or 3. And basically the first like 3 questions they ask me are, the same. It's tell me about yourself, why investment banking and why, this firm. And then, it's just different sections of the technical topics that they test after. I think that interview coming out of it, I felt I did wonderfully. And I was very confident until I got the rejection email, at which my confidence was shaken. And
Yeah,
that's when I realized, like, okay, again, like I need to like rejig my approach.
right.
So I continue recruiting quite intensely after that, realizing that, like, okay, hey, I did get close to it. I didn't get it, but get basically no other results for that term. Um, and that friggin' sucked because like I was I was in school early and I was leaving school late and I was skipping
Right.
class to do coffee chats and I was doing all the case competitions and I was going to all these different events and basically doing all the right things and as I said like structuring my day around recruitment. um and so I get to the end of that term, call it like December, and like very, very down because it's like, dude,
Right.
first year was like this. I thought I got past that. I've changed up everything. Like it's gotta work this time, but it didn't. And again, the people that I thought were doing less had advanced further than I did. Now, of course, I was ahead of, a number of people. And the reason why I refer to these positions so much is because, for me, I was always benchmarking myself against my peers and
Right.
trying to triangulate, where I was, what I had to improve on, what I was already good at. But, fortuitously, I get a response from one of like or I do an EY net case competition and win it. And I email all the judges after that competition, just like hoping that I can maybe, turn this into an offer, right? So a little bit of a Hail Mary. And essentially, one thing leads to the next, and I get the offer.
Wow.
I had to like had like it was like 3 or 4 chats and then 2 or 3 interviews through HR. EY had already closed the majority of their positions for the summer. So I was late, but because I won that case competition, I think had a little bit of leverage or clout. Anyways, that's how I get it. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was dissatisfied with how I got that, just because it was unorthodox and just because it wasn't the way I was expecting. It wasn't what I was preparing for. Now, those items could have had some level, like they definitely helped in those things. Like maybe I wouldn't have passed the interviews with them had I not done that prep. But I think you can
Mm,
kind of see how I was feeling up to that point. Just like,
right.
okay, I got it, but like it wasn't what I wanted. I didn't
Yeah,
get
no,
what I
I see.
wanted.
I
And so like
see.
how am I supposed to learn from this? Like what did I do wrong? So at that point, I'm satisfied like with second year. Okay, I have my second year summer internship. I have, my first year internships and for investment banking recruitment, really the big one is your penultimate summer recruitment cycle, right? Which takes place typically during the months of January to April for the second term of your second year. So I landed that offer mid-December and have about 2 more weeks to kind of like get into the zone. I take those 2 weeks completely off. I'm just like sick and tired of shit where I'm just like I don't even want to think about it. And I think that term I joined one of the clubs on at UBC just to get some extra help because I realized that like okay, despite all the work that I'm doing, I'm not where I want to be. And one of the things I hadn't done was get someone else's help, right? So that's what I did. And it it was the funny thing was it wasn't like they changed everything. But with the drive that I had and with the just kind of the boundaries they provided, like, okay, this is how you should reach out, and this is like what this behavioral answer should look like. And it's
Right.
like, okay, I didn't need too much hand holding, just like got the framework, got the different structures, bam, I'm off to the races. And so that term, having basically up to that point, my GPA was quite high. And I realized that the applications I would send to the firms for this cycle, so for my penultimate summer recruitment cycle, right, for my third year internship, um, they're not going to get my GPA from like including this term's grades. So I'm like, okay, this term's grades don't matter besides passing and staying, a student. So that's basically when I was all in on recruitment. Like it was just I
Right.
was sitting in the lab all day, just like 6 a.m., 11 p.m., just like
Wow.
right, just like order lunch. No one disturb me, please. Just like
Yeah.
go away. Like I have like I don't know if you guys have like these like to take participation. Some classes will have you do like MCQs and stuff. So I
Yeah, yeah,
another
yeah.
laptop. I brought 2 laptops to school, so I have another laptop just for like miscellaneous shit. Um, so that was kind of like shit. Like this is it, right? And so that term was definitely super hectic. You know, but come out of it. So started in January, and then basically my first interviews with a hedge fund for summer 2020, or like my penultimate summer. That hedge fund, I won a case, basically got second in some global case competition. So they invited me to the
Oh,
super day.
wow.
Um, it was a team competition, and only the first team was supposed to get the interviews. I got the interview, and no one else on my team that placed second place did. So I was happy with that, right? Once again, you kind of see like, oh, dude, it's hype, right?
Yeah.
Excited. Like
Yeah.
I got it when other people didn't. Let's go. And I prepped like crazy for that. And the reason why, or I don't know if this is the reason, but one of the things that I think went wrong in that interview was on that competition on my resume, I put like second in the world, right? Because it was a global competition.
Right, right.
And it was a 2 rounds, like final round process or final interview process. And first interview goes fine. Second interview, oh no, first interview is the one where we get to the end, and the last
Yeah.
question she asked me is like, so Matthew, I see here that you put second in world on your resume. Could you tell me why? I'm just like, she was a judge, by the way. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I thought it was a global competition. I know we had teams from all over the world. And then she was like, well, we actually only had 2 teams from Europe and one from Asia. So could you please change that? And I was like, okay, fair.
Wow.
That was really like yeah, the vibe turned real sour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the next interview goes okay, and yeah, basically I don't get it. So I'm like, dude, I thought I got this shit, right?
Yeah.
Um, like I prepped hard for that and the pitch too. I mean, like, dude, the top five had like Columbia, had like Cornell, had Dartmouth, and I think it was the University of Alabama and us. And yeah, dude, we beat the Ivies. So it's like, bro, what happened?
Yeah.
Anyways, pretty demoralized after that one, but we keep going. And the next interview I get is with like a firm called Evercore.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And they it's funny how I got that one because it's like I talked to 8 people on their team in New York. And I get that interview, and the first question that I'm asked is like, so could you tell me about yourself, why investment banking and why Evercore? Um, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I haven't prepared for this question before. I prepared for tell me about yourself, why Evercore, and why investment banking, but certainly not like combined. And
I
I,
see.
I think I was very nervous and just underprepared in that way because I kind of fumbled that question and gave like a 3 to 4 minute answer, which I
Oh,
think
I see.
itself didn't result in the no, but I think in terms of the knock-on effect it had for the rest of
Right.
the tone that it
I
set,
see.
just wasn't the vibe.
Right.
So I mean, I do that stuff and I don't get past the first round. I'm like, fuck, dude. And at this point, with the goal always being to go to the US to work in investment banking, the majority of firms that would even sponsor a Canadian to go had finished recruitment. There was no more offers they were handing out.
Right. Right.
And so realizing this, I start panicking because, well, one, it was my dream, but two, because I hadn't really networked with the other Canadian banks yet. So I quickly switch over to networking with the big six and RBC, all that stuff. Um, and then I get an interview with another Evercore like investment bank in the US. And that one goes perfectly. And
Wow.
so I get the offer probably like first week of April. And then I basically just like defer all my finals. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit. Like I got my offer. Like you guys can see me again at the end of the summer when I take these exams. So then I just like kind of took off from there. I felt really sick too. And that was basically the big recruitment cycle that I went through. I mean, coming out of that, it was an amazing freaking feeling. Like it was like, dude, all that freaking work paid off. Like,
Right.
holy.
Right.
And I remember that moment very clearly. I was in the library studying for my final. And I get a call and it's from Los Angeles, right, where that bank is located. And I'm like, shit, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still don't know if it's yes or a no, right? Because they do call candidates to say no. So okay, I take it. I walk to like a less populated part of the library, and it's like, hey Matthew. I'm like, hey. It's like it's like David here, from Mullis, and I just wanted to tell you that we'd love to have you on the team next summer, and we'd love to extend
Yeah.
you an offer. I'm like, dude, I mute my mic. I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, that sounds great, David. I'd love to join the team next summer. And so, that was awesome. Like, stop studying right there and then, just like go and have fun.
Yeah.
But that was kind of how it went. And I think like the the most gratifying part of that was that like to me that was always my goal, right? Like it was no one had imposed that on
Mhm.
me. No one, I wasn't doing it because of anyone else. Like I had kind of done things from the very start, right? And so I think the transformation, or what I still remember clearly, and why I tell anyone that they should go through investment recruitment if the capital market is something that's interesting to you, or if you want to like have a really good start to your career, and why I don't like necessarily want everyone to like drop out of university like I did is because like the journey itself taught me so much. Um, it gave me the confidence to do what you're doing, like initiate something and start something and go out on your own because I didn't have the infrastructure to start, but I started anyways.
Right.
And so it's funny. It's like I don't know if you've heard like the man in the arena that speech, but it's always like the person that people respect, that people look up to, or that changes things or has a big impact, outsized impact, positive impact. is the man in the arena, is the one doing it, right? Not the one spectating. And so I think, before the age of 16 years old, would look at those students or look at those people, right, who were doing, very well for their age or doing big things or dedicating themselves to something is like, he's just wasting his time, right? Like, oh, dude, like it's just his parents like pushing him. We're like, why
Mm,
would I want to do that? Like, it's like, dude, what, you look so dumb, right? So, but and not to say that that was what I faced in going through investment banking recruitment or committing to myself because it is a prestigious job. But I think just going out on a limb and being like, hey, no, if this all goes wrong, I'm okay with that, but I'm going to give it my all anyways and pay no heed to the downside because the upside is so great. And I know that I
right.
can beat that 0.1, that 99th percentile, if I go long and hard enough. That was the belief coming into it. And I think by the time it ended, that belief has solidified as like, this is true. This is something, this is like how the world works. And so I think the biggest benefit to going through that was the mindset shift. And just like, if we think of like effort as like, call it time plus intensity, right? And then to do something, if you have to be like the 1% in something, you want to be exceptional. It's like,
Mhm,
okay, well, I just have to put a 99th percentile level effort, right? That's either 99th
right.
percentile time or 99% intensity. Intensity, it could be like hiring people or paying someone, whatever. But like time is like the amount I'm willing to go through this
Actually
and
put
see
in,
the
right.
results. And like I told you, I saw no results like for the
Exactly,
majority
yeah.
of that cycle. So yeah, that's kind of how it went, and my big lesson for from that.
All right, now I apologize, KKC. We had a little bit of a technical error. But just to recap what Matthew was saying, he was talking about his professional experience and how sometimes you work as hard as you possibly can. Maybe you won't get the offer that you exactly wanted, but it's the idea. And Matthew, this is what I wanted to say before we got cut off. Kevin Hart actually he was speaking on a podcast and he mentioned the hardest thing on the planet is to do work as hard as you possibly can, get no results, and do the exact same day the next day, right? That the whole ideology, how far are you willing to go, putting in the same amount of effort every single day and just not getting that one thing that you really wanted?
100%.
It's truly insane, but kind of taking that approach, I did want to push into FR consulting, right? Taking your finance experience, entrepreneurship experience, and your whole, industry experience as a whole. Do you mind giving a chat about that?
For sure. Yeah. And just to kind of respond to what you said about Kevin Hart, I think
Mhm.
like Hormozy has a very similar quote, I think, and it's like the world belongs to those who can keep doing without seeing the results of their doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
seen that Twitter post. Yeah.
it's really true. And I think it comes from the fact that like, I mean, whenever you start something, it's like, or if you want to be different, or if you want to do something that other people haven't done, then necessarily like the path ahead of you is not laid out, right? And so like you have to zigzag your way across the finish line because if you had a straight path, you'd follow it. But if there was one to follow, then like you wouldn't be the exception. So
Right.
totally agree with you on that. And I think in terms of bringing that into FR, how that started was I was actually in that investment banking internship in LA that I landed. And I already been thinking about, I've been like brainstorming ideas for the month leading up to that during May, because US internships start in June and they're 10 weeks long. And I had like YouTube channel, I had like, oh,
I
like,
see.
one of those like documentary channels on YouTube that was like,
Oh,
all right,
I
it's just like
see.
talk about
I
topics and
see.
it's like 30
Yeah.
minutes or an hour long. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I think there was like a digital marketing agency that I wanted to start,
Mhm.
having no idea what like digital marketing
Yeah,
even
just
was.
copying the Iman Gadzhi trend, right?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I watched like the best business models to start, like that video. And which by the way, apparently made him eight figures.
I so I have my personal opinion on that. I feel like his entire wealth has been built off just selling courses to people like us. I'll be really
Yeah.
honest with you. I don't think
Oh,
he's
okay.
made. that much money from affiliate marketing. Because
Really?
there's this one video that completely exposes him. I'm so sorry, Iman, if I ever get you on the podcast, but essentially the video goes through the British, like the national records of the business he talks about, and their total revenue was $0. The profit was $0. Like it's literally inside, unless like he was hiding something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Interesting.
it's very interesting.
Interesting.
But his message is nice. I do like his message, his videos. I don't watch his videos as much, or
Mhm.
as much as Alex Hermosi
Yeah, I
or
watch it
Diary of a
too.
CEO, anything of that say
Yeah.
nature. But it's very
I love
interesting.
Darius. Yeah. Darius, he is
Yeah,
awesome.
it is
Um,
amazing.
he's
I love
Stephen
all
Bartlett has
the
such a nice voice. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just saying I love the way they articulate words, especially Diary of the CEO. He takes pauses rather than saying like he's very
He's really good.
concise with
He's
the type of
really
words he
good. Yeah.
uses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Godzi was just like that May phase, and then I kind of just like
Yeah.
didn't really watch him
Yeah, no,
anymore
same thing
because
with me.
it's kind of like it's like a very I don't know, it's very salesy, I think.
Mm,
But yeah, I just didn't feel like I was getting that much value. Whereas for Mosey, I think is like it's there's so much to fucking learn.
right.
So I do that brainstorming and everything, and then I'm sitting in the investment banking office, and then I get like a message from a student from my university, and it's like a request for a coffee chat, right? And I'm like, okay, let me take this, and I take it, and at the end of the call, he asks like if I can mentor him for money, and I was like, sure.
Wow.
Um, and so I'm like, okay, I'll send you a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, pay me this for it. And having done that prep in May, right, I'd come across a few instances where like, always price higher than you think, right? Always like you're worth more than you think. So I'm like, okay, like let me price high, right?
Yeah.
And looking back now, that wasn't like a high price, but I gave it to him. I'm just like, what's gonna
Yeah,
happen?
yeah.
He's like, sure. I'm just like, so I did taking
Yeah.
that call downstairs, like in the lobby, and he transferred me, to send him the shit, and I come back up, and I'm like, he's like, guys, I just made my first sale, right? I'm like telling my friends, and they're like, oh, interesting, and then I kind of get into the whole topic of like entrepreneurship and everything.
Mm,
But even during that internship, right? Like the certainly, because we're only like colleagues in that way, right? It wasn't like they were very pessimistic about the idea, and rightly so. And there's not
right.
many businesses like that, and I think for the amount of work that you would have put into landing a job like that, basically like top of the white collar sort of hierarchy, right? Like you're earning well over 6 grand, as a 23-year-old, but so it makes sense, right? That they wouldn't think that anything else could be successful. And I didn't either until like it did happen, but going through that internship and seeing that, hey, having done all that, having dedicated so much time to recruitment, and remember, I was interning with people from, really good schools in the US.
Right.
And, like even my friend from UBC who was there as well, um, like, at least from my perspective, I was better than like basically all of them at like the technical stuff when it came
Right.
to being in the job. Like I had just ripped so many models by myself, just like in the wee hours of the night or just like on weekends and stuff.
Just for
Like
fun.
yeah, like my laptop got stolen from UBC when 7 a.m. on a Saturday in school because I was just
Wow.
studying their modeling and I went to the washroom and then like I came back and my laptop was gone. So like I mean I was just doing it whenever I had free time and taking it very seriously. And so I think and whether or not that was true, like my assessment or whether or not it was true, like okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I could just be like some stuck up dude, I don't know. But that at the very least, it gave me the confidence to be like, once again, hey, I've proven that I can get further than I think. And so get to the end of that internship, I'm just like say no to the offer. And then I come out of that, I'm like, dude, I'm ready to start. And I had learned my lesson from recruitment because I didn't seek help when I was doing something new because I thought I was better than everyone, right? And that stalled my progress for so long. Yes, I ended up clutching it and getting exactly what I set out for, but not in the way that I wanted. And could I have gone further had I had help from the beginning? So I'm like, let's get help. I hire like a LinkedIn coach, pay him like, like nearly 10 grand. Um,
Wow.
and, yeah.
Wow.
Um, and dude, like it was one of the best investments I've ever made.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I make my money back like very, very quickly. But from then on, basically took all this stuff, having learned my lesson, like, okay, I know how to go hard. I just need to follow a plan. So, and then I can make my own plan later on when I learn these basics, but let me learn these basics first. And so the first couple of months of FR were really just like balls to the wall, just like work all the freaking time. Like yeah, it was a disgusting sort of like amount of work. But came out of those 4 months, the first 4 months, having basically eliminated all my limiting beliefs around entrepreneurship, how much you could accomplish online, how much value you could add, who you could reach, the sort of life you can have. Um, Realized that like, I was an introvert all my life. Now I'm doing sales weekly,
Right.
talking to students all the time. It's like, dude, it's just a skill that you need to learn. It's like, okay, well, what are all these other skills that I always thought I was bad at, could never be good at, that I can learn? And so that opened up, like continued. And so I think from the start of this business, have continually like kind of had my world shaken in terms of like what I believe and what is actually true. How do I deal with people? What is good? What is bad? Should I always be thinking about like what would make them feel the best or like what is true? Um, but then which one is more effective for getting them to like the goal that I need them to get
Right.
to as
Right.
a coach? Like, so there's a balance there, but there's a balance in like content. Like, okay, should I be markety and salesy, or should
Hmm.
I be honest and true? And like, I think you always have to be honest, but there's
A fine
there's
line.
gradations of that. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm. No, I was just saying there's a fine line to it.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And there's different like grades within that like, okay, like you can skew it towards this or towards that. And so I think it's just been a continual process of refining things since the start. But I think my most important lesson is that, like, dude, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I never thought I'd be doing this, right? Never really thought I was anyone. And I still am not. But I am at a place in I guess like professionally, um, and to the extent that we have to use, the money that you earn as a business owner as like, indication of how effective this business is, how good you are as a businessman or
Right.
whatever, right? Like I am not that good, but I'm way better than I ever thought I could ever be.
Right. Right.
And so I think stepping in that and being like, okay, dude, I'm here 13 months after starting my first business. I
Hmm.
have 30, 40 more years to see where I can
Right.
go. And the thesis in
Exactly.
starting this was like, hey, I have the knowledge of how to mentor people. I mentored a bunch of people throughout Finance Premium University. So like I have that knowledge, but I don't have business skills. So to the extent that this business is a combination of those two things, but I already have this, I can isolate for this.
Right.
And so if I learn these business schools, like, and you're a Hormozy dude, so it's just like it's just a skill
Right. Right.
acquisition, right? So that was the thesis, and I think it's played out, I think, properly since I started. Knock on wood, right? But I I I think for anyone that like comes and asks me about entrepreneurship, one, I tell them that like I don't really know anything. But
Yeah.
but two, I say that like you just have to have focus. And just
Mm.
like do one thing for fucking long. Like the law of hundreds from Hormozy, right? It's just like
Right. Right.
days straight of 100 minutes or 100 whatever, blah, 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 blah.
100
Just
cold calls every single day over and over
exactly,
again.
exactly, yeah. And I had a little bit of a stint before I started this business, trying to grow the LinkedIn account for about 2 weeks on like the club that I was part of at UBC. And like at the end of those 2 weeks, like I got like a couple comments from like the senior people in that club, like basically like shitting on the stuff that I posted, right? I'm just like, okay, whatever. But it's funny because it's almost like if I didn't try that, I might not have tried this. And so it's
Mm.
those little things where you're always trying to just like gain the edge, like you said, put your best foot forward, even when you don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
Even when you don't know what people say. And I think like starting this business also has showed me that like, dude, people are going to say whatever they want, like all the time. Um, Everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to have an opinion. And even when we were growing up, when we watched YouTubers, and they would always have drama, right? You'd always be
Yeah.
like, you always take one side. It's like, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like you're drawn to that. It's almost human nature. And I also saw that the YouTubers who did best, the YouTubers who like are today, they're as popular back then as they are today, or have grown since then. you were the ones that never like let it get to them. They just like kept going and kept moving forward. It's like, okay, controversy, whatever. Like so except Iman Gatti, even though like, okay, yeah, he is dishonest, blah blah blah. Maybe that's all true. Still fucking successful, like 24
That's
year old,
true. That's true.
right?
That's true.
Like, and so
Like as much as you want to hate, you can still buy my whole house, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think that's kind of the thing. It's like everyone's, just doing their own thing. And yeah, what social media, everyone's gonna have an opinion, but like, dude, I appreciate all the people that have all their opinions and like they're on their own journeys too, and I'm on my own journey, and like it's in 10 years, none of us are gonna remember any of this. But in 10 years, all of us are gonna be way further ahead in our careers, and I think like that's the thing to look forward to.
For sure. And I'm looking forward to it. Next time I come BC, you owe me lunch.
100%, 100%, man.
I'm playing around, but that's amazing. I love listening about your journey. It's genuinely amazing. I'm gonna put in some links in the bio for FR Consulting if anyone ever wants to check it out. Get a head start on the whole recruitment process, whether you're first, second, third, whatever year, even a 30-year-old man. Just go for it, right? It's always about taking that first step and
Mhm,
then seeing there is this one analogy I heard.
mhm.
At the end of the day, I forgot who it's from. It's like you're walking and every step you take, more light bulbs pop up, right? So you take one step, okay, there's more light bulbs, you can see wwhere you're headed off to.
Yeah.
And just keep taking those steps until you finally reach that goal.
Mhm.
And I feel that's the perfect analogy for this podcast as well.
100%, man. 100%. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, at that, I guess we're gonna end it off. But thank you so much, Matthew, for all your insights. Now I'm kind of mixed in between the title. Either I could say investment banker at Moelis or founder of FR Consulting, which is insane to have both of the things at once. But you have a very impressive career, and I'm glad to see how well it's worked for you, and I'm excited to see where it's going to take us in the future.
Thank you so much, Amar. I appreciate how in sync we were this
No
whole
worries.
whole
Yeah.
conversation. And yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And as for the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in on this episode. I'll catch you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.